people, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Gamer the Max and episode 21 of our Hearts of Iron 4 Old World Blues Enclave Redux mod. So, in the last episode, we had finished up a lot of our decisions that we had available. We started a lot of the focus tree that we have left to do. We're just about done with it. Where you've done everything up here except for the USSA mission, or mission control, and then we only have the Texas one left right here, and then we have these to do, this one here, these down here, and then the rest of this and the rest of this. So not too much left. I'm hoping, and then maybe like the next 2-3 episodes will actually end the series. First and foremost, what we're going to do is we're going to do Santiago Sojourn, and then we're also going to knock out all of these right here. Well, let's start this one up. I also did add another 1,000 political power to speed this up a little bit. The only reason I did that is for some of the decisions that'll come up, because we will be going and moving our military up north. We got claims on all of the lands that are not ours up here, so everything we have claims for now. And I'll actually be moving my tank corps north.
Who the hell is this?
And I actually will probably move
And the fucking president's watching us like a hawk.
these guys under. We got McNamara, we got Luke Morgan, we got John Jameson, sorry, Chief Hashkai Nabash, and General Judah Krieger. I guess we'll choose Krieger just for right now, for these pretty much the strongest units I have. Tanks
Who the hell
and my
is this?
original power armor unit.
President?
And this is just for simplicity for me to move them around. So we'll get these guys rolling up north. And yeah, let's start us out. So yeah, the only reason I added some political power is for when these decisions start popping, I can just go through them. I lose base war support, but the Free Fighters, oh yeah, the Free Fighters did go to war with the Republic of Mexico last turn, and they've been being steadily destroyed. We can do the prepare the Delta X rockets, which we will do. I told you that this is just kind of it's not really fully implemented into the game. They're just kind of working with it. I will do the Mexican reclamation, and then I'm not gonna do any of that. But the Mexican reclamation should have us. They have a piece of territory up here, and I'm hoping that it gives it to us. Is what I'm hoping. And then, yeah, I think that's it. Someone did say they wanted to know when I'd start building other things. Once all these are done, which you can see how many are being done up, that's when we'll move on to start constructing other things, because people wanted to see the Nuka-Cola core done. But you have to have 5 civilian factories to use. So unless I delete all of these and then like wait for some, like if I come down here and just click off on all of these, then I could do it. But I just figured just letting these go through real quick would be better. Whispers of Hope, we've seen this multiple times, so we're just going to take the political power and stability. Send me for I shall go. What I want to know is who will look after us. We fought for 25 years for this country, for this nation. Granted, might have brought it back from the brink of death, but it was our blood and tears that cemented it. I've got friends in the dirt. I've seen things that wake me up at night, and I've got friends who put themselves in the dirt because of things they've seen. I've seen guys coming off the street asking for a free drink because they don't have the money, and I've heard it in worse place. It's worse in places like Los Angeles, and I don't know what's up. Know about north, in places like Portland or Seattle, where I know a lot of guys went to settle after we shoved the Warren and the Brotherhood out. We gave everything for our country. Is the country going to give us anything for it? These were the words of retired Master Sergeant Anthony Eckerson, speaking to a reporter on the streets of New Reno, where the retired Master Sergeant runs a bar that's seen more than a few military members, both active, veteran, and retired, come through with horror stories of the war. Erickson is part of a growing concern among America's growing veteran community that while America's people and more importantly America's leaders were so eager to send them off to war to reunite the nation, they now feel like they've been cast aside once they were used up. I didn't think about this. And morning intelligence summary. There was a saying around Red Mountain that it was a rough morning if Callahan had coffee. He sat half awake in his chair as he and the rest of the staff received the morning intelligence summary before work began. Radar attacks along the border have subsided following a series of airstrikes, and we're seeing increased immigration from unreclaimed territories from the so-called Forbidden Zone. Meanwhile, we managed to place agents with the future expansion zone and... Hold on, Major. What's that bullet point at the bottom? Asked Callahan. Sir? Asked the briefer. That bottom bullet point, a nuclear bombing in the capital. Sorry, sir, left down by accident, spoke one of Callahan's officers. No, no. We're the only ones on this continent with nukes. Who the hell is nuking us? Chicago? Inquired Callahan. We got a tip from some woman named Lee Moldover. Well, she broke in last night, but she was apprehended. She was talking about how there was going to be a nuclear attack on New Reno. We have her in lockup down below awaiting transfer. Callahan nodded. Let me see her. Gets the event, the Mad Woman. The Mad Woman. You're either patiently insane or patently insane, or something else is up for you to try and break into Enclave Intelligence Headquarters. Who are you? The Mad Woman looked to Callahan from behind the force field wall, keeping her locked in. Everyone knows who I am. I really don't. Colonel Callahan, Enclave Intelligence. What is this about a nuclear attack on New Reno? You think Bud and his types in LA are just going to sit by? Do you know who Vault-Tec is? We've been monitoring them. What does this have to do with nuclear bombing? You don't fit in their model of the world. Bud's going to try and wipe you out, just like he nearly did with the NCR. Ma'am, upstairs I have a machine that will let me rewrite memories, so enough with the cryptic shit. You didn't break in here for nothing. Either you tell me what is going on, or I'm going to have to you think your name is Williams. Bud was going to have his little managers destroy the NCR because they didn't fit Bud's vision. However, you Enclave type started your war and destroyed the NCR before that, killing thousands. But now that you're in charge, he's going to destroy you. You got evidence of this? I've already I'm already disgusted that somehow the pre-war government returned. There was never anything good about the United States pre-war. But I'm not you. I can't let innocent people die or just condemn them to death because I didn't like who was in charge. I did that once. I saw the world end. I tried warning the NCR, but you killed them before that. Now I'm warning you, and it makes me want to vomit. But if it saves people, Callahan nodded. What's his target? It's just a job. Uh-oh. Hopefully that's not something that's actually going to come back and get us. The land of the Mexican Reclamation Zone. Can have their lands back, they'll have to pay. Or release Las Grajanas. Where's that? Has to be one of these territories down here. We get all the rights from the refinery. We can't risk a unified power to our south. Oh, we release these guys. So we'll just have to give them back their lands, but take all their resources rights. Yeah. There you go. It's just a job. A lone cart pulled by a Brahmin walked through the dead of night. 4 caravan smugglers kept their eyes out for any sign of movement. They froze as a vertibird flew overhead. Man, if it weren't for the dang pay, whined a smuggler. Shut it. All we got to do is push this cart into the city and get out, said another. No one's going to question a Brahmin cart full of scrap. Don't you think it's a little weird that old vault guy paid us so much to push a cart full of scrap in the center of the city? Caps, money, I don't care. You saw what he's paying. We do this, we get the biggest payday ever. Yeah, but we're pushing into New Reno. The amount of law there is stupid. Even the NCR wasn't that uptight. Quit your yapping or I'm going to shoot you and split your mouth, or split your cut with the rest of us. That seemed to do the trick when the sounds of vertebrates approached and put them on edge. They waited for the VTOLs to pass when the floodlights were upon them. Dozens of Secret Service agents rushed the caravan. The 4 smugglers didn't even try to put up a fight. One of the agents ran up to the cart and threw off the tarp. From the looks of it, the whole cart was filled with nothing but scrap metal and robot parts. However, he moved some bits aside before his blood ran cold. Bomb! Gets event countdown to 0. Countdown to 0. Granite walked into the bunker in Fort Sierra as the rest of the room was seemingly in a frenzy. What's going on? I'm awakened in the middle of the night and flown here, and no one has told me anything, shouted Granite. Harrison spoke up. We got one nuclear device half a mile outside New Reno and a Navy explosive ordnance disposal team on site. Granite looked at Admiral Richard, who nodded in confirmation. Supreme Court's being moved. We're alerting any and all members of Congress, continued Harrison. Vice President, Was in Vault City is sheltering in the vault. What about the people of New Reno? Harrison gave a defeated look. All the citizens have been ordered to shelter in place. We can't risk a panic. I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. All we can do is wait until that phone rings to inform us the bomb went off, or the bomb was defused, spoke Harrison before the phone went off. The entire room froze. If it weren't for the phones itself, you could hear a pin drop. Admiral Richards picked up the phone, and it was if time stood still. Yes, I'll let them know. Richard spoke before putting the receiver down and looking back to the others in the room. That was the Navy EOD team. Bombs defused. Gets event welcome home. It's been a tumultuous few hours, but with the nuclear bombs defusal breaths were collected, and now those who had attempted to destroy the Enclave a second time had made a very powerful enemy, and there would be no NCR or Brotherhood of Steel to save them this time. Grayson stood outside of Vault 32, the door already breached open. Due to animosity between Vault 32 survivors and the reality of their vaults, told to Vault 33 and all members of Vault 31 were placed in Vault 32 for their own safety, but also to assist in monitoring them. Vault 31 had been turned into an ad hoc field office for the marshals, and those same marshals were rushing in. However, they were backed up by Enclave intelligence agents, Sigma troopers, and rangers. Callahan walked up to Grayson. Grayson himself bristling next to the intelligence chief. Colonel, I'm aware of your reputation. Make no mistake, I will not see the law violated on my watch. Callahan's normal cocky demeanor turned rather dour, or I think it's supposed to be rather sour. The president has informed me I am to assist in any way possible. However, I'm aware that this is a civil matter and your jurisdiction. I'll follow your lead. Besides, I don't think you want to be dragged before Graham on my account. Shall we? Grayson nodded. Let us begin. Gets the event Enclave v. Vault-Tec. Enclave v. Vault-Tec. During Grayson's time in Vault City, he read numerous reports and countless stories from raiders rounding up a settlement population and holding them in the center of town. Walking in the atrium of Vault 32, he was reminded of these stories and reports. Being on the opposite side of it, everyone looking at him while bound and watched over heavily armed men and women felt weird. The only difference was the brain on a protectron that was Bud Askins. Sir, we're short two members, former Vault 30C Overseer Hank McLean and Betty Pearson. Ladies and gentlemen, all of you have been implicated in a nuclear terror plot targeting the capital of the United States, spoke Grayson. The Vault 31 members looked among themselves before Bud spoke. What? That failed? Impossible. There was no way you could have known. Callahan leaned towards Grayson. Is that what they call a confession? Mr. Askins, are you actually admitting to attempting a targeted nuclear strike against the enclaves of the United States? Bud just laughed. Enclave this, enclave that. It's a damn fairy tale. I told you, enough with the enclave stuff. I'm tired of hearing about it. This is no enclave. There is no government. The United States is dead. Heirs to a dead nation. Grayson gritted his teeth at the mocking brain on a protectron that was Bud Askins. The cyborg hobbled towards it defiantly as to challenge the old lawman. Listen, I don't know what nation you think you're an heir to, but the United States is dead. We saw to it. Your little playtime on the surface, that's all that is. Playtime. Now run along. None of us are citizens of a dead nation. We're citizens of Vault-Tec. And if you don't leave... Askin's arms sparked to life, electricity jumping between his metal claws. Things might get messy. It did not occur to Bud that he and the rest of his buds happened to be surrounded by several well-armed marshals who promptly readied their guns in response to the Vault-Tec's executive's threats. The other members of Vault 31 looked uneasy, perhaps wondering if 200 years in a jar had messed with Bud's brain a bit too much. However, all this was stopped as a dark chuckling drew over the tense silence. What's so funny? Who's laughing? Why is there laughing? Shouted Bud. A figure in a brown leather uniform stepped forward. Grayson shook his head, as knew any attempts of handling this within the confines of the Constitution just got thrown out the windows by Bud's hubris. Mr. Askins, Grayson spoke, trying to at least save some people. Do you speak for all members of Vault 31? They are my executive assistants. I speak for them all. Grayson sighed as Callahan stepped forward, flicking the top of a Nuka-Cola. Name's Colonel Callahan. Enclave Intelligence. Since none of you are American citizens... Uh-oh. That means you're under my jurisdiction. I can imagine him just sitting there rubbing his hands together. He's like, ah. Is that supposed to... the man from Cedar. Is that supposed to scare me? Laughed Bud. His response was a plasma bolt from Callahan to his robotic chassis. The Protectron body crumbled over before the jar containing the Vault-Tec senior junior vice president's head fell off. Everyone looked at the intelligence chief as he raised his still smoking plasma pistol. Folks, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not a good man. I'm not one of the good guys. I've tossed people out of vertebrates. Let them be eaten by monsters, turned them into vegetable people. And I've been summoned before Congress more times than I can count. He kicked Bud's brain jar, causing it to fly across the atrium. And I have a lot of enemies. The only reason I'm here before you is I get results. I make miracles happen. So in theory, if I fail here, my enemies might have something to get me removed. There's no way I'm going to fail. I highly advise all of you. to reclaim your American citizenship and cooperate with the Attorney General. They're going to have to write a new set of articles in the Geneva Convention is what I'm going to do. So please, make my day. Grayson blinked. He knows why Graham hated him. Gets the event follow your nos. Follow your nos. I think it's supposed to be follow your nose, but I'm not sure. Vault 31 had once again become the epicenter of the investigation. Once each member of the Vault 31 was questioned, they were to be placed in cryostasis until it was over to ensure they didn't conspire with the rest. Grayson watched as Chase Powell was placed in suspended animation following Callahan's little show. Every member of Buds reclaimed their citizenship, or at least paid lip service to it to save their own skins. Anything yet? Callahan walked up. No, however, it seems McLean and Pearson were in an inner circle and most weren't in it. Seems Bud kept everything close to his chest. Makes sense if all of them were his cronies, he could really only rely on his most trusted members, and records show they've been out for a while. Are also the only two a-holes not here, spoke Callahan. So we have our culprits, but no leads. Anything from Bud? Callahan smiled darkly. I'm having him pledge allegiance, steer the ship. Mr. Askins, I have to ask, but did you honestly think you had a chance? Call me cruel, but did you honestly think you would have a future in this world? So convinced that the Enclave didn't exist. We survived the Great War. What was one more nuke going to do? Asked Callahan. Grayson shook his head. Bud repeated the Pledge of Allegiance, desperation cleared his verse. Colonel, please, enough theoretics, may I? Callahan smiled before pressing a button on a terminal Bud had been hooked up to. Grayson sat down next to Bud, the cyborg panting as if he had run a mile. Who are you people? He pleaded. We're the Enclave. The Enclave? Panted Bud. Doesn't. Mr. Askins, bellowed Grayson. Do you think I want to drag myself before a farce and lie about it? You can lie to yourself all day, but I will not lie to you. Since you have refused your U.S. citizenship, I am perfectly content to let Callahan toy with you, unless you tell me where Overseer McLean and Miss Pearson's are. Bud panted, his jar bubbling. I'll never tell. You won't get a thing out of me. You hear me? I'm Bud Askins. I got it, spoke Callahan, staring at his monitor. Huh? What? Asked Bud. Even Grayson was confused. I knew stressing you out would lower your mental guard. Had this puppy hooked up to your mind the whole time. Vault Tech Enrichment Center near Sac City. Mr. Askins, it's been a displeasure working with you. Get the vent, step on the gas. Step on the gas. The Vault Tech Enrichment Center was a long, looted structure had once been used as a hideout for raiders before getting cleared out by the NCR Army, and even one time as a follower's medical post during the NCR Enclave War. Now it buzzed as vertebrates descended onto the place. Half of them were from the U.S. Marshals, others from the Enclave Intelligence. The joint team swarmed the place before several of them encountered some automated turrets protecting a secure back room. The ambush was negated when a Sigma team came up and easily dealt with the scrap turrets. The Marshals broke into the room with the Sigma troopers backing them up. When they discovered were signs of life in the past few days, as well as the dead body of Betty Pearson, a bullet hole in her forehead. Half hour later, Grayson and Callahan were looking over the body. They knew we were coming, growled Grayson. Monitoring the airwaves, likely listening in for the Enclave to collapse, and when they realized it wasn't, and we were coming, split, noted Callahan. Killed his partner. She's old and not in the best of shape. McLean, from what I remember, was in shape. It's likely didn't he want the dead weight or a loose end. Cunning, now we have a highly dangerous man out there willing to kill to survive. Now what? Asked Callahan rhetorically. Marshal Gaillard, get security footage of Hank McLean. I want his wanted poster plastered from Redding to Dayglow to Gecko, ordered Grayson. Dead or alive, sir? Mr. McLean, I presume. Image by Zims D16 619 on Deviant Arts. So that's actually really good some art right there. Gets the event The Hunt for McLean. Granite looked over the report from the vaults and the raid on the old enrichment center Grayson and Callahan had given him. I'll have to release a statement. The people need to be aware, and this man needs to be aware that there's nowhere to hide. So we got a pre-war executive assistant with knowledge of nuclear bombs running around, asked Granite. Unfortunately, yes, replied Grayson. Didn't look like McLean had been gone long. In fact, it looked like he left in a haste, probably just before our vertebrates arrived. We couldn't cordon the place off. We were moving too fast, explained Callahan. Granite put the papers down and adjusted his tie. I have a speech to prepare. Play event with audio. I have a speech to play without audio. The Enclave was resolved. Good evening, America. I wish I was coming to you tonight with better news. A few days ago, we nearly had a crisis in that rogue element of a vault attempted the nuclear bombing of our temporary capital out west. If it wasn't through a tip and a quick acting that I'm speaking to you tonight from the Western White House or speaking to you at all. All this in an attempt to destabilize and destroy our great nation. By now, a few of you have seen the wanted posters for Hank McLean, the man responsible for the attempted nuclear bombing. I'm asking any and all Americans that have any information to alert local and national authorities. I want to make it clear that this terrorist will not be welcome in any city, town, or settlement, that we will hunt him to the ends of American shores if we have to. This man thought he could destroy what we worked so hard to create. We'll show him that he has made a very powerful enemy. They say in the wasteland one man can change history. Well, let's show them what thousands can do when they're united. Good night. God bless America. That was actually really cool. I'm glad that they've added that. That was a really interesting little story to go through. So 5 days for the restored Fort Bliss. Been to Fort Bliss. Once these units get fully prepared, we're gonna start to roll. So I think I can finish. Oh, one more. They should have somewhere. I wish railway guns worked a little bit better in the game, but they don't ever seem to. Fort Bliss served as our fortress along the Rio Grande and the development center for air defense. While pre-war that was a much needed component given the Chinese bomber strike into the northern lower 48. Today it almost seems frivolous to return the base to protection against the air, or so we thought. From powered gliders to the airships of the Brotherhood, the Enclave may have been or may have dominated the skies once. Nowadays, we are finding ourselves challenged. Regardless of how they managed to get the better part of flight characteristics down, the facilities at Fort Bliss will allow us to maintain air control as well as serving as a jump-off point for our continued push into Texas. Adds technology Vindicator EADSs, gives boost to Army Organization and Special Forces class. Special Forces cap. Seriously, how do tribals have aircraft? What's a Vindicator? Ooh. Yeah, very nice. Bring those up. I only want one more of those, yeah. So I'm actually kind of sad that these, as much as I like these, I was really hoping for like a longer range. Every time in the base game, anytime you upgraded your railway gun, usually you would get a little bit longer of a range. But they didn't seem to do that on this, so nothing I could do to change that, of course, but it's just something that I wish in the game it was coded to do that. But let's see, we'll just do this one, digital data links. Hank McLean lynched. Oh, good lord. Well, not really. We got words of a man matching his description near the hub. However, by the time we got there, an angry mob had formed, and the person claiming to be Hank McLean was hanging from an unused light pole. However, when the marshals got him down, it was discovered not to be Hank McLean, but instead a drifter who matched his description, which means an innocent man just got hung because he looked like the guy. We did manage to apprehend those who ordered the man hanged, as they were very eager to collect the rewards for capturing Hank McLean. However, when they were informed that not only was this the wrong man, but they were also arrested for third-degree murder, they were less enthusiastic about it. Lose one manpower. Oh lord, that's Sergeant Major Dornan joins veterans. In a move that surprised no one but still sent shockwaves through the United Nation, the legendary retired Army Sergeant Major Archibald Dornan came on Radio New Vegas to further address the growing chorus of veteran military members and their families over the growing concerns faced with those who are affected most by the Unification War. I trained them, maybe not all of them, but all that training, all the manuals and books I wrote or screamed at someone to write. I tried to think of something they could face in the wasteland: death claws, raiders, monsters. I was so busy trying to prepare them for the fight I didn't think what would come after. Sure, I had a plan, but I've been at this for nearly 100 years. Well, I prepared them for combat best I could. Now I guess I can try and do something to take care of them after combat. It's what sergeants do. Dornan is expected to join several other key veterans and military members in New Renos to push for restoring the Veterans Administration. Oh yeah, that was a thing. Yeah, well, once that comes up, we got them. Could do a sponsored movie, patriotic movie. Oh, I need army experience. Can do that. Some more army experience.
Why isn't your video feed working? Why isn't your video feed working?
These guys training. The new Sierra Madre Gala event. The president today headlining the what has been described as the event of the decade. For the first time since the bombs fell, the streets of the Sierra Madre resort were filled with music, while lights and fireworks lit up the skies. The gates of the Sierra Madre, once thought to be a place of myth and legend, have officially reopened. The event itself was held within the casino resort itself, made up primarily of the military forces responsible for clearing the resort, as well as construction, engineering, research, and archaeological teams who worked tirelessly to put the place back together. The festivities concluded with a brilliant fireworks display signaling to America that the resort is open for business once again, and for a limited time is offering resort passes at low numbers. While many within the event said the festivities were great following several weeks of work and effort, a few noticed a strange figure walking among the crowd dressed in a brown pre-war suit that bore a striking resemblance to the resort's original builder, Frederick Sinclair. So far, pictures of the individuals remain blurry at best. The Sierra Madre anew has begun again at Sierra Madre, which grants negative 10% consumer goods and trade tariffs plus 3%. That is great. How many do we have now? We have so many factories. That's beautiful. I love it. Bomb scares. Residents in California fled the area in a panic when a caravan was discovered carrying an unidentified device. The caravan guards were unsure what it was and just said they were only paid to move it into the center of town. The resulting panic saw hundreds flee the area, packing all they could as what remained of the local police, cornered off the area, and alerted higher authorities. A naval explosive ordnance disposal team arrived to assess the situation and approach the caravan. Fears were alleviated when it was discovered that the nuclear device was a highwayman engine that was being delivered to the town. After a few hours, officials managed to track down the owner of a local machine shop who was destroying the pre-war car, who was unaware that the device was actually an engine he bought off a caravan's previous merchant. The mechanic shop is in the center of town, and he was waiting for the arrival of the caravan to collect his engine. Madness, lose 5% stability. And then executive investigations have ended. All right. While we're sitting here, I'm sorry, old lone tree, but you're gone. Did I get this territory back? No. So I'm going to have to take this territory back from Mexico by just claiming it via council commands. Take me a second. Oh, man. Look at how fast my tanks blow through them. Actually,
This is Enclave Redux.
just cordon.
Oh, lovely. You can say that again. Now move, soldier!
Yep, we got their whole army
That's a no.
waited right there. Speaker Graham proposes bills to reintroduce the Veteran Administration. We asked our soldiers to give everything. We've asked them to march into hell, to fight battles on the bloodiest sands of Nevada, in the bombed-out husk of Shady Sands, and march right to Arizona and face a fanatical enemy that would see them crucified or burned alive. And they did. They fought, bled, and won, because they believed in something greater than themselves. And now we have a duty, a sacred duty to them. Graham's voice was steady, but beneath it burned the righteous anger that had driven his political career. There was a murmur in the chamber, a quiet understanding. Our veterans return home with scars, some seen, many unseen. Some return to families who barely recognize them. Others return to an empty house, and if they return to a house at all, what kind of thanks for your service is that? No, it's not enough to say thank you for your service and send them on their way. We need infrastructures. We need to restart the Veterans Administration, and we need to make an agency worthy of the sacrifices they've made. We need medical care that actually works. We need psychologist support for those, or psychological support for those who wake up screaming in the night. We need jobs, trainings, homes. His voice hardened. We sent them to war. We must now bring them home. Silence filled the chamber for a long moment before the applause began. First, a few scattered claps, and then a rolling standing ovation. Even those who had sparred with Graham in the past knew he was right. The bill is expected to pass the House. Well, if it didn't, I need Big Dad Granite go down there and whip him into shape. Some Canadian tanks. War crimes during our first struggle to liberate America. American forces engaged with some might call war crimes against the civilian population. Pictures of the accident or the incident have been released in newspapers across the United States and have been greeted with condemnation by the New World Party. Punish the troops. Side of the Free Press will be critical of offensive wars against settlers and tribals. Oh. What else is on? Oh, every time we declare war, we're going to get this. We'll use 30 manpower, 3% support, and 5% war support. Ugh. Or we just lose the war support and some political power. So we have entertainment broadcast. What else is on? I shouldn't have done that. I should have done the actual one, but I'll start doing right this coming up time. God, that's so crappy.
Enclave here.
Alright, we just defeated them. Don't know if that opened up anything. To do. Does not look like it. Are you a part of a faction? Yes, you're part of the Nebraska Confederation. United Wallers of Nebraska. Checkpoint counts. Well, I really hate to defeat them. And I wish I could have them join without defeating them, but it's not gonna let me. Really, the power armor might be the better.
That's a no one.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's switch this up. Hold on. Hold on.
Who the hell is this?
You guys
The
go up
president?
here.
You look,
Brah. Do that.
who the hell is this? The
You boys
president?
come down here.
You look,
Knock out the last Redoubt. Right about. Alright, get you boys moving. Rocket ready. We've completed work on the latest model of the Delta X, as well as training the crew necessary to pilot it. The ship is ready at Bloomfield, and the USSA director is standing by the presidential order to begin loading procedures and countdown to launch. Alright, let's do this. Ads. Rocket ready. We'll launch the rocket. We got a 25% chance of getting into America among the stars. 5%, you hear that. 5% terminal launch failure. So there's a bunch. So just click it and see what we get. America among the stars. The launch went off without a hitch. Once reaching stable orbit, the astronauts proceeded to perform a number of scientific tests. Though all boon to the USSA and the growing space community, it was little use to the government. Thankfully, the crew is reporting nothing out of the ordinary, aren't settling in their trip for around the globe. Once the orbit is complete, they will land the rocket at the pre-designated landing zone, where they will be recovered by military vertebrates and returned to civilization in short order. Successful mission. And this country ain't big enough for the two of us. Recently, we were getting strange complaints coming out of the West Central California. Complaints about a government collecting taxes, which amounted to nothing more than the bribes to allow safe patches or else be harassed by sheriffs working for the president. Investigating the area, we found that a local power broker named Sorrel Booker had declared that New Reno has fallen and he was the government in charge now. No, that's not a typo. It's actually how he spelled it. He and his gang have set up in the old settlement and are passing themselves off as sheriffs and collecting taxes and other incomes from people moving through the area. Given our efforts elsewhere, it seems he's using the hysteria created by McLean to mislead citizens. Unfortunately, it never occurred to him that the New Reno hasn't fallen and that the government still very much exists. Given the fact he spelled government, we don't think intelligence is a very strong suit. Sending the marshals gets government and government. Round of applause for that gentleman there who cannot spell. Government and government. The seat of power for President Booker was a dusty old saloon guarded by his sheriffs, which amounted to nothing more than thugs in old highway patrol uniforms and badges made from sunset sarsaparilla deputy badges. The marshals arrived by nightfall, reminiscent of NCR Rangers in their dusters and armor. Their orders were clear: attempt to arrest if necessary, but handle any hostile action with a proportional response. A series of actual sheriff deputies and law enforcement had been collected to assist the marshals in the endeavor, but were hanging back awaiting the signal. As the marshals made their way into town, a few of Booker's sheriffs tried to stop them until they realized what they were up against. Then the shooting started. For 2 hours, the marshals duked it out between the poorly equipped sheriffs as they tightened the noose on the town. The only reason they didn't move faster is the marshals had to positively identify their targets, as there were still people in the town. Soon, however, they were breaching into Booker's saloon just as he put a pistol to his head. One clean shot later, and Booker's pistol was on the floor, and the marshals were placing him under arrest. A fitting end, diplomatic immunity. Veteran bills faces minor battle in the Senate. The Veterans Bill was faced some slight opposition in the Senate from Senator Jessica Rhodes, who had addressed a concern over some of the fundings required in the bill. Senator Rhodes addressed a crowd of reporters. No one in the Senate, myself included, is saying that we should not look after our veterans and that this is not what I'm saying in the review of this bill. My concern is that my esteemed colleague, Speaker Graham, might have put the cart before the Brahmin. His proposals are generous, but it has the possibility to break the Treasury. The nation is barely holding together as it is, and as we expected, more and more will need funds to kickstart reconstruction and the economy. Our soldiers deserve a nation that takes care of them, but they don't deserve a nation that will crumble under the weight of a deficit and then do everything they fought so hard for. With regret, I must look over the bill and adjust spending to ensure that we make the greatest effort to look after our veterans, but at the same time, do not lead to the deficit spending of the NCR or the pre-war government. Man, democracy's hard. Yes, it is, my friend. Yes, it is. Invest in the military academies. I need army experience. Santiago's sojourn. Our lost brethren. For the first time, refugees from Heaven Gates and traders from further northeast spoke of a force describing themselves to the U.S. Army. They seem to be holding out in parts of Montana near Missoula, directing resource gathering efforts and providing security and safety to the local populace, along with soft martial law, censorship, and the occasional prejudice acts against ghouls, super mutants, or occasional deformed human. In short, this sounds like a splinter faction in the Enclave. It's reported they are led by a well-doing commander and not a megalomaniac moron. So unfortunately, it's not Richardson's, or so fortunately, it's not Richardson's sons. Send a search team. Gets MacArthur's last stand. MacArthur's last stand. Our return to MacArthur was not a warm one. We know we'd find some remnants of the battle, but nothing like this. The bodies remained frozen where they fell. Some Enclave, some Raiders, even some Brotherhood forces. The base itself was destroyed as the Enclave defenders desperately tried to deny their enemy any advantages while taking the base. Others were seen just holding a desperate last stand by the survivors that fled to Nevada, just enough time to evacuate. Searching the bunkers and the lower levels found even more bodies, signs of heavy fighting, and not a survivor in sight. Santiago herself broke down in tears as she saw the bodies of her men and women strewn about. Combat casualty forces are collecting the bodies for examination and record keeping. If there is any one silver lining, we managed to find the schematics for Hermes Special Forces armor, which Colonel Callahan managed to find hidden with the body of his cousin. Prepare a proper burial, full military honors, add Special Forces Hermes armor. Okay, the Hermes armor, very nice. Let's do Tandy's legacy, Tandy's teaching. Let's see, production wise, what can we build? Get these starting to be redone. We got a lead on McLean. We just got a wire from Happy Trails Caravan Company in Sac City. One of their operatives headed north were paid by an older gentleman matching McLean's description. According to the tip, the guy looked emaciated, worn, and looked like he hadn't eaten in days. They plan to stop over in a settlement on their way north to pick up some more supplies. I'm willing to turn him over. It's outside our area of influence, but when you have vertebrates, nowhere is too far. Amusingly, it seems that not only are they expecting the reward money, but they also expect the large sum that McLean paid them to keep quiet. It's a double payday for them. Honor among thieves, indeed. Meet in Coswold. Alright, I'm ready to have to just get and eat through my war support here to take over the Nebraska Confederation. Start your push. First, I thought we were losing. Yeah. Main battle tanks. There we go. Meet me in Coswell. The settlement of Coswell was a minor settlement built into the remains of a busted down U.S. military convoy. The Happy Trails Caravan Company was one of the few routes that walked this area and provided more income, or provided some income for the settlements. It was an unassuming town and had weathered much of the turmoil in the wasteland for some time. Of course, all things must come to an end. The chase ends. The last of Bud's buds. Last of Bud's buzz, the Marshall Vertibird lowered onto the landing pad as Grayson and Callahan stood there waiting for the engines to shut off. At long last, the manhunt for Hank McLean was over. Of course, before they dragged him into court alongside Bud, Grayson wanted answers. Bud was a psychopath, but his time spent in a jar clearly had altered his perception on reality. McLean had a daughter and a son, a family. Why throw all that away? Why risk all of this? First out of the Vertibird were the slanted marshals along with some of the human marshals. McLean was let out and was clearly disturbed by the sight of the slanters. One even fake growling and biting at him, causing the former Vault 33 overseer to jump and scream. That was met by laughter from the slanter, who clearly enjoyed seeing a human so terrified of them. I love those little guys, chuckled Callahan. Grayson walked up and looked over the emaciated McLean. It was clear McLean wanted this to end, but there was still a fire inside of him. Defiance. It didn't matter. Mr. McLean, I presume. Welcome to Fort Sierra, the winning team. It was a poorly lit room, a single 40-watt bulb, an old table, 2 chairs, and 3 ceilings-mounted auto turrets trained on the single prisoner. Worn out from everything that had happened, sat Hank McLean as he contemplated everything. The door opened. Grayson sat down and laid out some paperwork before Hank. Surprisingly, by all accounts, you should have gotten off easy. Or you would have gotten off easy had you not shot Miss Pearson, who would only really be facing 20 years. Mr. Askins, who would be the one taking the fall. Sadly, murder is murder. Of course, I'm not here to give you what you're being charged with. No, I wanted to ask you why. Why do this? Hank was quiet, just sitting there opposite of Grayson, tired, worn out. Grayson cracked his neck. Mr. McLean, the president has tasked us with finding out why. Now, outside the door is a monster with a Nuka-Cola addiction, and frankly, he frightens me. Either you tell me why you try to destroy the government, in government. What government? The United States? That's a joke. The United States is dead. I saw it die. All that's left are savages. The savage people are still waging war 200 years later. Your world is a factions and endlessly fighting, endlessly at war. I had to make a choice between your violent world and my peaceful one. Enough with the United States crap, spat Hank. Grayson nodded. You know, I used to be like you. Stars and stripes forever. We called them muties back then, continued Grayson. We all did. We all grew up calling them muties. Freaks. Then everything went to hell and I escaped with an angry old NCO. Fled east to Vault City. We wound up in the courtyard and it was there I came face to face with a mutie. You know what they did to me, Mr. McLean? What those people called muties my whole life did? They handed me water. Said I looked thirsty. Could use a drink. Grayson leaned back, eyeing McLean. I was treated like vermin by those Vault City elites. Had to fight to get my rights back. Spent time in Vault City Guard and earned money to open my practice. And I saw the horrors and terror that was in the wasteland. I've seen unspeakable things and I've put away some vile dregs that I wouldn't call human. I've always think back to that cup of water I was handed, that even when I saw all that, there's still some good in this wasteland, and I've worked my whole life remembering that. Then there's you. Grayson stood up and loosened his tie a bit. Who decided to destroy everything without even stopping to think about who else's lives out there. No, because it didn't fit in your world. In polite society, Mr. McLean, I would let 1,000 raider bosses go free, than not see you shoved in the deepest hole I could find. You disgust me. However, your fate's not mine, not for me to decide. That is for a judge and a jury of your peers. Good day, Mr. McLean. Hope to never see you again. Trial of Overseer Askins and McLean. The trial. A federal court today sentenced Vault 31 Overseer Bud Askins to death following the attempted nuclear bombing of the United States, with this judge citing that it's too dangerous for Bud Askins to be left alive. Mr. Askins was noted for being held in contempt of court several times by the preceding judge, which some analysts are saying led to his death sentence. Former Vault 33 Overseer Hank McLean was sentenced to life imprisonment for aiding and abetting terrorism, plus 40 years for the murder of Vault resident Betty Pearson. Additional charges such as being an accessory to mob lynching was passed to Sierra Commonwealth Court following a federal review. The president thanked Attorney General Felix Grayson and Intelligence Chief Colonel Mattis Callahan for their role in bringing this crisis to a close. Speaking to the assembled press, President Grant announced that the time of lawlessness and terror that defied the last 200 years is coming to a close, and this marks a turning point in a new era. Gain 10% stability and 10% legitimacy. Very nice. I love that legitimacy. My tanks are pushing, and now my power armor shall also be pushing. Breakthrough. Senate to reintroduce a revised veterans bill. In a move that sparked heated debate, Senator Rhodes has introduced a revised veterans bill, a bill she claims will provide necessary support for the veterans of the United States without bankrupting the nation they sacrificed so much to protect. The original proposal proposed expansive funding for veteran healthcare, housing, job placement, long-term psychological services. Critics, including Rhodes, claim the price tag was simply too high. The revived bill scales back some of the most costly provisions while still maintaining core benefits. Largest change included a tiered healthcare system, a work transition program, and a leaner housing initiative. This is about sustainability, Rhodes argued. We cannot afford to go to the way of the NCR, promising everything and delivering nothing. This bill ensures veterans are cared for without destroying the economic stability of the very nation they fought to defend. The Senate is expected to debate the bill next week. We'll see where this goes. Listen, I know you guys fought hard, and I know you guys did a lot for us, but it's just not in the budget right now for us to help you any farther. Oh, okay, thank you.
Enclave here.
I always think that's the funniest. Well, you volunteered for it. Yeah, you're right. We do volunteer for it. My power armors. Oh, we got them both. Let's say my power armor's just eating through these guys. There we go. We are steadily knocking these boys out and about. So we got Newton here. And we got live wires. Take a sip of my drink. I need to take this territory away from them. I'm going to cut real quick, and then I'm going to take that territory back from them using the console command. So, and we're back from the little cut there, and we now own Newton, which is what I was trying to get accomplished there real quick. We'll move these units down and across. These guys are doing so well.
Why isn't your video feed working? Everything's always tighter out here at Enclave. This is Enclave main comm.
Do you have enough to boost our war support, which I don't know if we can go up to total mobilization. Yeah, I think we're as high as we can, so get our troops here. We're going to clear up all of these probably in this episode and get ready for fighting the Republic of Mexico coming up. Tandy's teaching. The NCR was one of the largest successor states on the West Coast, carrying on the traditions of the old world. This site being a rebel government occupying American lands, what started out as an honest attempt at creating civilization devolved rapidly. Politicians, wealthy barons, and a loose cannon military-industrial complex. In short, the exact thing we had prior to the Great War, and they did it in half the time. Those who had power quickly centralized it in the hands of a few for profit. Those who would wielded their powers with reckless abandon. Even when we took California, we felt the sting of the Brahmin barons, and we were forced to deal with them accordingly. The NCR shows exactly why trying to repeat the old world would just lead to the very same mistakes. Enshrine her reforms into the Constitution. Be sure to remind those that the government is in charge. Get plus 4% division organization, plus 7% division attrition. The NCR failed because they were the NCR. Democracy no longer functions in this world. House's legacy, we get plus 0.03 daily political power gain, negative 3% stability, and factory output plus 10%. Tandy's reforms is the best with negative 5% consumer goods and plus 5% stability. So we're going to enshrine hers with Tandy's legacy. We're going to come up here and do change that bind, which is the Brotherhood of Steel. Install, power all, build. Do these ones. We'll do Reclaim Omaha, Reclaim Pierre, the Ojai Dam at the deadlines, and the Reclamation Army Depot. Perfect. I need heavy artillery. What is considered heavy artillery? Is it this? Guessing it has to be this. I know someone wants a cavalry division. I will build those once I don't need the army experience anymore. So they are not considered heavy artillery. So we shall see what is considered heavy artillery. Etching solutions. That is the complete done of the industry tab. Let's get go to research. The defenses are online. We gain 10 fighters. Power up all. Feral ghoul remover. We just always do that. Let's do a war movie for weekly war support and mobilization speed. Always very useful. Do Paradise with another Gek. Gunderson Ranch. To US 93. Let's do Abrams Air Force Base. We'll do that one. Or Abrahams. Both bills passed Congress. In a controversial move, both the House of Representatives and the Senate have passed two competing veteran assistance bills, sending them to the Commonwealth Assembly for final review. The Veterans Bill, spearheaded by Speaker Graham, proposes comprehensive and expansive benefits for veterans, including lifetime medical care, permanent housing assistance, and robust psychological support services. Graham has championed the bill as a moral imperative, arguing that the United States owes its veterans nothing less than the full support of their sacrifices in the wars against the NCR and Legion. The Veterans Act, crafted by Senator Rhodes, takes a more fiscal approach, offering a scaled-back version of veterans benefits focused on short-term assistance, job training, and tiered healthcare system. Rhodes and her supporters claim the bill prevents economic collapse while still ensuring veterans receive the help they need. With both bills have now passed, the Commonwealth Assembly, the third house of the Enclave Congress, responsible for reviewing and reconciling conflicting legislation, will decide which provisions will ultimately become law. This is absurd, retired Master Sergeant Anthony Eckerson said. It speaks to the deep divide in Congress regarding how to handle veterans' affairs. The Commonwealth Assembly is expected to begin deliberations next week, and both veteran advocacy groups and fiscal watchdogs are watching closely. The final outcome could shape the future of the Enclave Veteran Administration for decades to come. Well, I guess that's what the assembly's for. The families of Vegas. New Vegas is one of the richest cities of the West, but it's also under the influence of some powerful families. With our economic growth, they begin to spread their influence beyond New Vegas, and we need to decide how to handle them. Granted, always considered himself for the families. We gained the three families, which gives us plus 20% cap income, passive caps income plus 5, and negative 100 political power. Or Sergeant Doran leads the police to break the families available because you selected out with the old, giving 5% stability. Or the families faced with the threat of law go legit. Because you completed the judicial branch, we get the three families and we gain 5% legitimacy instead of losing 100 political power. So we'll just do that they had to go legit. Very nice. I'm glad you see the errors in your ways. Factor-resistant chassis for our robots and do Duraframe our robots. Where are my tanks at? Oh, shoot.
Enclave here.
Move them over here. Take a little bit. The Dakota Dam. The Ohihe Dam might not be as grand as the Hoover Dam or as technologically as marvelous as the Hephaestus project, yet only a fool would see this old dam as anything but just as vital, if not more so. Whereas Hoover has infrastructure and Hephaestus has raw power, the lands around the Ohihe are as barren as they come for the wasteland. Since wresting control of the dam from its previous owners, we managed to repair much of the damage thanks to the part to our expertise at Hoover. Whole swaths of the Midwest can now be powered and extended our range quite the feat, given our entire project started from a humble beginnings in Gecko's nuclear power plant. Power for the future Fort Pierre had production of 500 power. Operations in Omaha. It's almost hard to believe that Omaha was even hit by nuclear bombs. Well, bomb. The survivors of the Great War considered themselves to be the last true pure Americans. They've even crafted man-made super soldiers to assist them in ruling over Omaha with an iron fist, ensuring that lesser people are kept out or worse. Where, oh where, have we heard that before? Sure, their priests, these so-called man-made angels, gave our troops hell when we entered the city. Nothing could be handled without or with a proper application of power armor, firepower, and airstrikes. Didn't help they had to face a real war in some time, and that's not the real shame. The real shame we had to destroy and preserve the rebuilt city. But the stars and stripes are flying high over Omaha once more. An interim government has been installed to try and figure out how they're going to run a state that is locked behind a massive wall. The former members of the order, stripped of their ranks, protection, and the very last priest dead, are wailing at how we've destroyed civilization and the last pure Americans. Perhaps we should show them Golgotha. Right, what do we do? More to come in the future. Omaha City adds to infrastructure. The Great Breach and the Deadline. Across the river from Rapid City lurks a particularly nasty variant of mutants that have plagued the lands for centuries. A vertebrate flyover led by the pilots to find the reason for this horde. A breach in the old Midwest containment depot, now known as the Deadline. At first a quarantine zone for the new plague, the pre-war government began dumping dissidents, communist sympathizers, and other unwanted individuals in there. Now it seems to be a mess of survivors fighting back in the horde of undying mutants flooding out of every broken orifice. We know the records in there could implicate us and destroy what legitimacy we've gained over the past few years. It might be best to launch a sustained campaign to clear out the horde and Deadline once and for all. Fire solves everything. The Reclamation Army Depot, made for pre-war bases and forests, are either stripped clean, rotting away, or overrun by robots or post-war maladies. Usually robots due to the high amount of automation the war with China caused. Places like Sierra Army Depot are far and few between, which is a great surprise when the Army forces approached Reclamation Army Depot and was greeted by General H-47, who not only recognized our codes but recognized us as enclaves. The good robot general, so promoted, mind you, has been dutifully carrying out his orders at the depot for the past 200 years, though he's been distracted by mutant escapees from the Deadline. He's more than happy to relinquish command of the base over to the U.S. Army, as 200 years has not been kind to his circuitry and servo joints. Stand down, General, your watch is over. Restoring Pierre. Pierre is a bit of an oddity in the wasteland. They are ever fearful of a Canadian invasion, proud of their Crow heritage, and have been doing battle with the Dam Busters and other threats that have come out of the Plague Lands for the past few decades. Upon our arrival, the city was still in relatively good shape and was benefiting from increased trade both in caravan and along the river. Not that they didn't attempt to put up a fight, it was that they were focused on a different fight altogether. While nominally the threats have always been the dam busters who were wary of the power they held over their precious dam, recently, however, expeditions in the subway tunnels underneath the city have caused the Crow to mobilize, and are now it's becoming our problem. When our troops arrived, city militias was training how to fight in close quarter combats and in techniques we recognize when fighting against feral ghouls. Thankfully, power armor is a wonder in itself, and while some resisted, they were more fearful of something else. We've managed to exert control over both the dam and the city itself. However, everything is pointing to a terror underground, and a small patrol past their forward position revealed a network of tunnels that could run for miles. Enclave Intelligence has looked through it and determined that they're likely linked up to the Nebraska quarantine zone, which, yes, stretched into South Dakota. Callahan has pointed out that if ever to return the air to normal, we're going to need to clear out the network underneath Nebraska and Nevada sooner rather than later. We'll get to it. Capital of South Dakota is returned to Pierre. More coming soon. Adds 2 infrastructure, and Sacred Clouds renamed to Pierre. I love it. I love the lore that comes with this game. If the mod developer ever watches this, I hope he knows that he and his team have done an absolute amazing job with this. Clear up the castle. We'll just do the most expensive one, which is this one, the Blue Castle nuclear plant. See there, repurpose energy cells. Better purchase resource gain efficiency. Love that. Good on water. Well, we're close to being good on scrap metal. Assembly review of both bills passed to the President. In an unexpected and controversial move, the Commonwealth Assembly has officially approved both the Veteran Assistance Bill and Veteran Assistance Act separately, sending them both to President Gander for final consideration. Chief of the Assembly, Lynn Carson, addressed reporters outside the Assembly area, speaking in her usually measured tone, though some noticed a flicker of aspiration in her expression. After thorough review, the Assembly has determined that both bills, each with their own strengths and weaknesses, meet the necessary criteria for passage, Carson stated. As such, we are forwarding both pieces of legislation to the President, who will have the final say on which will be enacted into law. When asked why the Assembly did not consolidate the bills into a single proposal, Carson sighed before answering, because Congress couldn't agree, and frankly, neither could we. The decision means that President Grant will be now forced to choose between Speaker Graham's expansive full benefits veterans bill and Senator Rhodes' more fiscally conservative approach. While the President has not yet commented, many expect him to sign, given the overwhelming bipartisan support in Congress and the Assembly sources closest to the President in literal close proximity to the Western White House. Say that the president was vocally not happy with the decision. To put it bluntly, said one senior official who wished to remain anonymous, the assembly just threw the president into the middle of a political minefield and handed him two lit sticks of dynamite. Oh, come on! Of course I have to do this. Granite sat in silence, seething existential crisis, glaring at the paperwork on his desk as they purposely had betrayed him. Personally had betrayed him. After finding himself forced to make the final decision between the House's Veteran Bill and the Senate's Veterans Act, one expensive and expansive, the other lean and cost conscious, somehow both made it through the legislation or were sent to the Commonwealth Assembly, which, in its infinite wisdom, decided to combine them into one monstrosity and dump it on the president's desk. He sat there, arms crossed, jaw clenched, contemplating whether sitting it on fire would be a viable constitutional response. I gave them power, he muttered under his breath. I thought, hey, let's restore the legislative branch. Let's see how the U.S. government works, right? Let's have checks and balances. Let's govern like a republic again. He sat out a long, exhausted sigh. And this is what I get. You know, when it was just me in charge, things were simple. Granite ran into Boris T. Just like when I commanded Granite Company. I made a decision, people listened, boom, done. But no, I had to go and restore Congress. And now they pull this stunt. Two competing bills, and I'm the one who has to pick the piece. I should have just kept running things myself. Boris looked at the president and shrugged. So which one are you going to sign? The House Veteran Bill gives us consumer goods negative 15% plus 10% stability plus 10% construction speed plus 8% compliance growth speed, trade tariffs minus 20%. Or the Senate's Veterans Act gives us recruitable population plus 5%, 5% stability, 5% construction speed plus 4% compliance growth speed, trade tariffs minus 10%. I promise you the Enclave is not poor right now. So we're going to go with the Veterans Bill, especially because I believe this was the better bill anyway, and it gives you way better benefits. So he will sign the House's Veterans Bill. My God, you want to talk about a incompetent leadership right there with them going, and we're not going to deal with this because this is a political turmoil, and just threw it away. Diplomatic immunity. Well, at some point he used the title to have others show respect and fear, and here along President Booker was a joke. Already several guards were reprimanded after Booker complained about a lack of food and was tossed empty boxes of black mo and cram. The joke being, just like his government, the food wasn't real. Grayson sat across from the sovereignly individual, really wishing he wasn't. However, because President Booker had been charged with secession, it made it a matter he was forced to handle. As Grayson read the charges, however, Booker seemed to take it in stride. You can't charge me, you said yourself. I remember watching an old holotape about two cops going after a gun smuggler who was a foreign dignitary. Since you didn't kill me, I have diplomatic immunity, so you can just let me go, laughed Booker. Grayson smiled. Hollywood isn't real. I know that movie. Here's the thing. The only thing, if we recognize that country, which we don't, we also don't recognize you as a head of state, so your diplomatic immunity has just been revoked. Your trial's in 8 days, by the way. You can't do that. Watch me. Let's do... fighters, fighter long range fighters. I wish we got vertibirds, but we don't have them right now. Ballistic weapons are cheaper. Probably do docks for the infrastructure. Do 5%. And then we can do the Cedar Caravan companies for the trade tariffs. Might be nice. I usually just go with the docks. You Tim Tanks. Scavengers return to triumph. We get research speed plus 10% for 180 days. Ooh. I don't like the minus 20% range on our screens. Let's throw them on though. Right here. Let's do the vertibird designer. Close air support plane. So we're almost done with sending the heavy ordnance for the Grand Canyon. Do that. Deathclaw hunting airborne style. The Army has finally delivered the heavy ordnance and power armor. and the troops as well to operate the equipment along with the air support provided by the EPA vertibirds. Each one were deployed to several identified prime minorities and uranium mines to handle the death claws there. Things got pretty close to the identified primordials where the artillery came in on top, rippling even the death claws in half and bombarding the nest from afar, allowing power armor troops to move in and take out the survivors with anti-tank weapons. Interestingly, while there were signs of half-eaten remains in and around the uranium mines, including several bodies identified as humans, no death claws were reported. One team entered into a cave a short distance and reported noises, but were not equipped for cave combat with their heavy weapons. Those caves were marked as not cleared, and Director Corliss will deal with them when he gets there, and the EPA members working in the canyon are expected to be on alert for the time being. Concerning but good to hear. Now work can resume. Power up the power grid. Build more. Alright, I just want to finish really quick the Max and Ideals. Change that bond, and then I'll end the episode, I promise. Max's ideals, Brotherhood still the errant secessionists from the United States Army, driven by contempt for our actions with the war effort. They nonetheless tried to uphold the traditions of the Army by protecting people. Well, that's what Maxon tried anyway. The ideals of the Brotherhood were soon bastardized by Horden technology, a disregard for human life, and seeing anyone outside their hallowed halls with nothing more than contempt. Made worse by a hamstrung elder council who would push their problems out the door and pretend they never existed, leading to the rise of the Washington Brotherhood and Elijah. Yet they remained true to their cause, survived more than one attempt at destruction by their foes, and even rebuilding an entire nation from the Midwest to the East and to Texas. Use Maxon's ideals to form something new. We grant resistance or reconnaissance negative 10%, division defense on core territory plus 15%. Just what horrors can technology unleash? Lose 1% monthly population. Daily compliance gain plus 0.03%, or life as technology is more important. Lions teaching which grants 30% stability but negative 10% war support. And then America has no time for traitors. I don't care for that one. This one, I don't really want to lose the war support for stability that I already have. But I think if I'm going to choose one for everyone, even if I don't like them. So I think the best one was the stability one, the Lions teachings. And then we'll do Sins of Our Past. We'll finish out this one in the next episode. But I hope you guys have enjoyed episode 21. In the next episode, we will clean out the rest of these guys right here. But we've done quite well. We've taken the Lone Tree. We've taken the Nebraska Confederation. And we're one step closer to coming down here and restoring the reclamation zone for the Mexico reclamation zone. So they're already finished with their focus tree, I just realized. So, and then I also did realize that Canada is out of power armor. I don't think they even produce it, as I was sitting here looking. So we will be sending some equipment up north to let them use their knights, because they do not produce power. So, all right, yeah, with that, I'm going to end the episode. Hope you guys have enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.